The hours before their mission felt strangely tense. Alex sat on his bunk, his mind racing with thoughts about what lay ahead. He was alone in the small room, his gear neatly packed and ready for the operation. The idea of working with Zira kept nagging at him. He had never worked with anyone like her before. She was an alien. He had no idea what her true abilities were, how she fought, or what her instincts were like. Would she be an asset, or would she slow him down? He tried to shake the doubts from his mind. After all, Zira was part of this mission. For a reason, she had to be skilled. But that still didn't make the situation feel less awkward. He had been in many tight spots before, but this was different. Zira was his partner, not just another soldier. A soft knock on the door broke his thoughts. Alex stood up quickly, his hand going to the weapon at his side. It was a reflex, one born from years of training. But when he opened the door, it wasn't an enemy standing there. It was Zira. "I'm ready for the training session," she said, her voice calm as usual. Alex nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, me too, let's go." They walked through the hallways of the base, heading toward the training room. The base had an advanced simulation area, designed for all types of combat drills, both virtual and physical. As they arrived, Alex noticed several other soldiers preparing for their own drills. Most of them gave him curious glances, but no one spoke. It was clear that a human soldier paired with an alien wasn't a normal occurrence. Zero, however, showed no sign of being uncomfortable. She moved through the room with ease, as though she had been here 100 times before. Her eyes seemed to scan everything around them, taking in the layout of the room, the positions of the soldiers, and the available equipment. Alex couldn't help but feel a little out of place next to her. The instructor, a burly man named Sergeant Hart, called them to attention. "Private Alex Zira," he said, pointing at the two of them. "You'll be training together today. The goal is to complete this exercise without making mistakes. We'll see how well you work together." The simulation began, and Alex quickly found himself thrust into the action. The training exercise was a high-intensity combat scenario with both virtual and physical elements. They were supposed to infiltrate an enemy facility and neutralize the guards. Alex was used to this kind of training, but having Zira at his side felt different. "Move forward," Sergeant Hart barked, signaling the start of the exercise. Alex and Zira moved together, creeping through the simulated environment. The walls were covered with digital screens that flickered and shifted as if they were real. Every corner could hide an enemy soldier. Every sound could be the warning of an ambush. Alex was the first to spot a guard ahead. His training kicked in, and he raised his weapon, preparing to take out the target. But before he could make a move, Zira stepped forward. Her movements were swift, almost too fast for Alex to follow. With a small motion, she silently took out the guard, her hand placed gently over his mouth as she neutralized him. Alex blinked in surprise. What the Zira looked back at him, her expression unreadable. "We can't afford mistakes," she said. Simply, Alex wasn't sure what to make of her cold efficiency. He had expected her to be good, but this was different. Zira wasn't just skilled, she was flawless. They moved through the simulation room, taking out guards one by one. Every time Alex hesitated, Zira was there, already handling the situation. It wasn't that Alex wasn't capable, he was more than trained for this. But something about Zira's presence made him feel like he was always a step behind. "Keep up," Zira's voice echoed in his ear as they advanced. Her tone was neither harsh nor kind, just practical. As the simulation continued, Alex began to realize how out of sync he was with her. He couldn't match her precision, her speed, or her ability to read the situation. He started to second-guess himself. Was he even good enough for this mission? Was Zira already thinking he was a liability? At one point, they reached a simulated room with a heavy door. The simulation required them to break in and disable a security system, but the door was locked and reinforced. "Any ideas?" Alex asked, trying to keep his frustration out of his voice. Zira looked at the door for a moment, her golden eyes calculating the best approach. Then she reached into her pack and pulled out a small device, and she attached it to the door's security panel, and within seconds, the door slid open. Fast thinking, Alex muttered, impressed. Zero didn't respond. She simply moved forward, leaving Alex behind to catch up. The exercise came to an end soon after. They completed the simulation without a single mistake, a perfect score. Sergeant Hart nodded, clearly impressed, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy. The mission was only getting more real, and here he was, struggling to keep up with his alien partner. Good job, both of you, Hart said as he walked over to them. But remember, teamwork is key. Don't let differences slow you down. Alex nodded, but his mind was still racing. As they left the training room, Zira didn't speak, her face as calm as ever. Alex couldn't understand her. He couldn't figure out if she was a perfect soldier, a machine, or something else entirely. She was so different from him, so distant, but her efficiency was undeniable. Alex had to admit that he was beginning to admire her. He didn't want to. He didn't want to feel like he was relying on an alien for this mission. But there was no denying her talent. He might have been a soldier for years, but Zero was something else. They walked back to their quarters in silence. It felt like they had just completed a routine drill, but Alex knew it wasn't. This was the beginning of something bigger, something that would test them both as they entered their rooms. Alex couldn't help but glance at Zira. He wasn't sure what was going to happen next, but one thing was certain. He was going to need to trust her. In the end, his survival and the success of the mission depended on their ability to work together. And so far, Zira had already proven she was a force to be reckoned with. The morning of the mission, Alex woke up early, well before his alarm went off. He couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been following him ever since he met Zira. Despite her calm and professional attitude, Alex felt like something was missing. He'd worked with human soldiers his whole career, and now he had to rely on someone who wasn't human. It felt like he was walking into the unknown. His mind raced as he prepared his gear. His weapon, a standard-issue rifle, was polished and ready. His suit was checked, and his boots were laced tight. But it wasn't the gear that was making him uneasy. It was Zira. She had proven herself in training, no doubt. But this mission was different. It wasn't a simulation. It was real, and it was dangerous. He grabbed his pack and walked down the hallway to the briefing room. The corridors of the base were quiet, with only the soft hum of the machinery in the background. As he neared the room, he could hear the faint sounds of voices inside, along with the beeping of a few monitors. The team was already assembling, and Zero was there as well, sitting at a table, her expression unreadable as always. Private Alex. Glad you could join us, Captain Harris said when Alex walked in, his voice firm but welcoming. Harris was an experienced officer, one Alex had worked with before, and he knew the captain was a no-nonsense kind of guy. Good morning, sir, Alex replied, taking a seat beside Zira. She didn't acknowledge him, but Alex didn't mind. She didn't need to. He wasn't here to make friends. He was here to complete the mission. The rest of the team was made up of humans, mostly soldiers with specialized skills technicians, combat medics, and scouts. Alex recognized some of them from past assignments, but none of them had worked with aliens. They were all looking at Zero with curiosity, but none of them said anything. It was clear that they, too, were unsure about this new partnership. All right. Listen up, Captain Harris said, drawing their attention. He pointed to a holographic map of a remote planet on the edge of known space. This is where we're headed. The planet Terran 7. It's a harsh, desert-like world with little to no population. But that's exactly why the enemy has set up camp there. They've been working on a new weapon, something that could shift the balance of power in this war. He zoomed in on a small outpost on the map. It was heavily fortified, and from the looks of it, getting in without being noticed was going to be a challenge. Our job is simple, Captain Harris continued. We're going in, gathering intel on this new weapon, and neutralizing it. The enemy won't expect us, but we're not underestimating them. We'll be in and out quickly. Paused, letting the gravity of the mission sink in. The room grew quiet, the only sound being the soft buzz of the holographic projector. It wasn't often that Alex had seen such a serious look on Captain Harris's face. The stakes were high, and everyone knew it. Alex's eyes flicked to Zira, who remained perfectly still, her golden eyes locked on the map. She seemed unfazed by the mission's difficulty, which only made Alex more nervous. He wasn't sure if he should admire her calmness or feel more anxious because of it. "Be using the tunnels beneath the outpost to infiltrate," Captain Harris said, breaking Alex's thoughts. "We've got the coordinates, but the tunnels are old, and the enemy knows about them. They've been blocking off entrances, so we'll need to be careful. Once inside, we'll split up into teams. Alex, Zero, you'll be in charge of gathering the intel. The rest of you will secure the area." Zero turned her head slightly, her golden eyes meeting Alex's for the first time that morning. "We need to move quickly once we're in," she said, her voice steady. "If we delay, they'll be ready for us." Alex nodded, feeling a small surge of respect for her clarity. "Got it," he said. Captain Harris continued. "Once we have the intel, we'll call for extraction. There's a window for the operation, and we don't have much time. We'll be depending on Zira and Alex to get us the information we need. Everyone else will be there to provide support if things go south." The mission seemed simple enough on the surface, but Alex knew better than to believe it would be easy. There were always complications, always something unexpected that went wrong. He had a bad feeling about this one. The more he looked at Zira, the more he wondered if she knew something he didn't. She had been quiet, too quiet, throughout the briefing. "We leave in 2 hours," Captain Harris said, dismissing the team. "Get your gear, check everything twice, and be ready." As the others filed out of the room, Alex lingered for a moment. Zero was the last to leave, and he decided to speak with her before they suited up. The two of them stood in the quiet room, the hum of the base's systems filling the silence between them. "You ready for this?" Alex asked, trying to break the tension. Zero looked at him, her expression still unreadable. "I have been ready for this mission for a long time," she said. "I know what needs to be done. You need to trust me."
Alex
took a deep breath. He wasn't sure why, but he felt the weight of her words. Trust. It was a difficult thing to ask, especially when he didn't know her, didn't understand her. But he couldn't ignore the fact that Zira had proven herself in training. Was capable, more than capable. "I'll follow your lead," Alex said, his voice steady. Zira gave a small nod, then turned to leave. "Good. Let's finish this." Alex stood there for a moment, his heart racing. He didn't know what to expect from this mission, but one thing was certain: they were going to need to work together if they had any hope of succeeding. The 2 hours that followed the briefing felt like the calm before a storm. Alex checked his gear one last time, ensuring that everything was secure. His heart was still pounding from the mission briefing, but there was little time for doubt. Now, he had a job to do, and he had to focus. Zero stood across the room, her posture perfect as she ran her fingers over her weapon. She seemed unbothered by the upcoming mission, her golden eyes calm and steady. Alex admired her quiet confidence, but it only added to his growing sense of unease. She was a stranger to him, and in battle, trusting a stranger could be dangerous. Yet they were stuck together now, and he had no choice but to rely on her. When the time came, they gathered in the main hangar of the base. The team was ready. Alex could see the others, his fellow soldiers, the experts in their fields, looking confident and ready for the task ahead. It wasn't just a mission. This was a chance to strike at the enemy, to gain a strategic advantage. The stakes were high, and there was no room for failure. Zero led the way, walking toward the transport ship without a single glance back. Alex followed her, trying to ignore the feeling that something wasn't quite right. It was the silence, the way she moved efficiently, with purpose. She wasn't just a soldier, she was something more. As the ship ascended into the night sky, Alex could see the distant stars and the dark planet below them. The destination was Tehran 7, a desolate world that the enemy had claimed for their own. It wasn't far from their base, but the journey felt long, each second stretching as they neared their target. The ship touched down in a secluded area, far from the outpost they needed to infiltrate. The atmosphere was thick and dry, a harsh desert landscape stretching as far as the eye could see. The planet was barren, with little to offer but its harsh terrain. But hidden beneath the surface, the enemy had built a fortified stronghold. Alex, Zira, and the rest of the team disembarked, their boots sinking slightly into the sandy ground. They moved quickly, the dust of the planet swirling around them as they made their way toward the hidden entrance of the tunnels. The rest of the team stayed behind, their job to secure the perimeter and provide backup if necessary. Alex would be the ones to infiltrate. "Stay close," Zira said in a low voice, her golden eyes scanning the surroundings. "We don't want to be detected." Alex nodded, his hand gripping his weapon as they advanced. The silence of the desert was unnerving, but Zira moved without hesitation. She had a map of the tunnels, and she seemed to know exactly where they were going. Alex was grateful for that. Without her, he might have been lost in the labyrinth of tunnels beneath the outpost. They reached the entrance. An old, rusted door, hidden beneath a pile of rocks. Zira knelt down and worked quickly, using a small device to hack into the control panel. The door creaked open with a soft hiss, revealing a dark corridor inside. The air was stale, and the walls were lined with dust, but it was clear that this was the way in. "Ready?" Zira asked, glancing over at Alex. Alex nodded, trying to steady his nerves. "Let's do this." He moved inside, the tunnel narrow and claustrophobic. It was a stark contrast to the vast desert outside. The tunnel was lined with old pipes and wiring, a mix of decaying technology and signs of hasty construction. As they moved forward, Alex could hear the faint hum of distant machinery, the sound of the enemy's operations at work. Zira led the way, her eyes never leaving the path ahead. She moved like a shadow, silent and swift. Alex followed closely behind, trying to keep up with her pace. It wasn't that he couldn't move quickly, but Zira was something else. She seemed to glide through the darkness, her every step calculated and deliberate. They reached a junction in the tunnel, and Zira stopped. She checked the map again, her brow furrowing slightly as she studied the path ahead. Alex waited, his eyes darting around the dimly lit space. There was something about this place that felt wrong, as if they were walking into a trap. "Something's off," Alex murmured. Zira didn't answer at first. She was too focused, her eyes narrowing as she examined the map one last time. Then, with a soft click, she stored the map in her pack and motioned for Alex to follow. "Stay close," she whispered. They moved again, this time slower, more cautious. The silence was almost oppressive, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. It was as if every sound echoed off the walls, alerting any enemies nearby. But still, Zira moved forward, unshaken, confident that she knew exactly what she was doing. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the tunnel, a faint scraping noise, followed by the click of a door opening. Alex froze, his heart racing. Zira's golden eyes flashed with recognition. "Ambush," she whispered. Before Alex could react, a group of enemy soldiers appeared, blocking the path ahead. They wore heavy armor and carried advanced weapons. Their faces hidden behind helmets, the light from their rifles glinted in the dark, and Alex felt his pulse quicken. Zira didn't hesitate. She drew her weapon and fired, taking down the first soldier with a single shot. The rest of the team was moving in, but Zira and Alex were on their own. The enemy soldiers returned fire, their shots ricocheting off the tunnel walls. "Get down," Zira shouted, pulling Alex out of the line of fire. Alex hit the ground hard, his weapon trained on the enemy. He returned fire, hitting one of the soldiers in the chest. The soldier crumpled to the ground, but there were more of them, too many for just the two of them. "We need to move," Zira said, pulling Alex to his feet. "We can't stay here." They darted down another hallway, the sound of enemy fire echoing behind them. Zira moved like a blur, her speed unmatched by anything Alex had ever seen. He followed her, keeping his gun aimed ahead, ready for whatever came next. "Where are the others?" Alex asked, his breath coming fast. "They'll be here soon," Zira replied, never breaking her stride. "We just have to hold them off until then." Alex had always prided himself on his ability to stay calm under pressure. But something about this mission was different. They had been caught off guard, and now they were running out of time. He had to trust Zira, but part of him wondered if they would make it out of this alive. As they turned another corner, Alex heard the familiar sound of a door opening behind them. The enemy was closing in fast. Just a little further, Zero said, her voice steady. They ran, knowing that every second counted. The sound of enemy soldiers chasing them echoed through the narrow tunnel. Alex's heart raced as he and Zira sprinted down the dark corridor, their footsteps heavy against the metal floor. The air was thick with tension, and every turn they took seemed to bring them closer to the enemy's clutches. The mission had started off well, but now things were slipping out of control. Zira moved like a shadow ahead of him, her every step calculated. She was unfazed by the gunfire that continued to echo behind them. It was as if she had expected this, like she had known all along that the enemy would be waiting. Alex, on the other hand, felt the pressure mounting with every passing second. He had trained for situations like this, but there was something about the alien soldiers' relentless pursuit that made him uneasy. "How far are we from the extraction point?" Alex asked between breaths, keeping his voice steady. Zira glanced over her shoulder, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the tunnel. "Not far," she said, "but we can't afford to stop." Alex pushed himself harder, trying to keep up with her. She was fast, faster than any soldier he had ever seen. The way she moved was almost effortless, her body slipping between obstacles with ease. He couldn't help but be amazed by her agility. But there was no time to focus on that. Now they had to escape. A sharp turn ahead signaled the next challenge. A heavy door blocked their path, and Alex knew they wouldn't make it through without trouble. He reached for the control panel beside the door, but before he could touch it, Zira was already on it. Her fingers danced over the panel with a speed that left him breathless. Within seconds, the door slid open with a soft hiss. "Move," Zira commanded, her voice urgent. They ran through the door, finding themselves in another corridor. This one was wider, with tall ceilings and better lighting. But that also meant the enemy would have more opportunities to catch up. Alex didn't know how much longer they could keep running. They needed to find a way out, dash fast. Just then, a voice crackled over the coms in his ear. "This is Captain Harris. We've got a transport ready for extraction. Head to the rendezvous point now." Alex felt a rush of relief. The extraction was close. They just needed to hold out a little longer. Zira didn't respond to the coms. She simply picked up her pace, moving faster than ever. Alex followed her, but as they reached another intersection in the corridor, he heard a sound that made his stomach drop. Footsteps. The enemy was closing in on them. "Stay behind me," Zira ordered, her voice cold and sharp. Before Alex could ask what she meant, she sprinted ahead, her weapon raised and ready. The enemy soldiers appeared from around the corner, their rifles aimed directly at them. Alex's heart pounded in his chest, but Zira was already in motion. She fired first, a precise shot that took down the first soldier in an instant. Her movements were fluid, almost graceful. As she ducked behind cover and fired again, Alex, caught off guard by her speed, quickly followed her lead. He fired at the next soldier, taking him down with a single shot. The remaining soldiers returned fire, but Zira's position was too strong. She moved like lightning, dodging their shots and hitting her targets with deadly accuracy. "Cover me," Zira shouted to Alex. He didn't need to be told twice. Alex moved into position, providing cover fire as Zira darted forward. She was a blur of movement, her body weaving in and out of cover as she closed in on the remaining soldiers. It was clear now Zira was a force to be reckoned with. Her skill and precision were unmatched, and Alex felt a sense of awe mixed with something else, something deeper, a growing respect for her abilities. In a matter of seconds, the last of the enemy soldiers was neutralized. Zira turned to Alex, her expression still calm, as if nothing had happened. "We need to move," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos they had just faced. Alex couldn't help but feel a rush of admiration for her. She had handled the situation with such ease, without a hint of hesitation. It made him realize just how much he had underestimated her when they first met. Zira wasn't just a teammate. She was a warrior in her own right. He was lucky to have her by his side. They continued down the corridor, their footsteps echoing in the silence that followed. Zira led the way, her eyes scanning their surroundings. As they made their way toward the extraction point, Alex's mind raced. The mission had been more dangerous than he'd anticipated, but they had made it through. They had faced the enemy head-on. And now they were almost at the end. As they approached the final turn, Zero suddenly stopped. Eyes flickered toward the wall, a slight frown crossing her face. "What is it?" Alex asked, his voice low. Zira turned to face him, her golden eyes locking with his. There was a moment of silence, as if she was weighing her words carefully. Then she spoke. "I knew this mission would be difficult," she said, her voice calm but with a hint of something Alex couldn't quite place. "But there's something you need to understand. The enemy we've been fighting, they aren't the real threat." Alex blinked, confused. "What do you mean? We've been fighting them for weeks." Zira looked at him, her expression serious. "The real threat is what they're building, something far worse than you realize. Something that could destroy entire worlds." Alex's heart skipped a beat. He had known the weapon was dangerous, but hearing Zira say it like that, it sent a chill down his spine. "You're not just here to collect intel," Zira continued, her voice softer now. "You're here to stop something far worse, something I've been trying to prevent for a long time." Alex stared at her, his mind spinning. What was she saying? What did she know that he didn't? The mission was starting to feel much bigger than just gathering information. They weren't just fighting an enemy, they were fighting something that could change the entire course of the war. Zero didn't say anything more. She just turned and began walking again, her pace unhurried, but determined. Alex followed, his mind still reeling from her words. The mission had only just begun, and already he knew that nothing about it would be simple. The extraction point was not far ahead. Alex could feel the pressure lift as he and Zira approached the designated location. The sounds of the enemy pursuit had faded, and the corridor ahead was quiet. They had made it through the worst of it, and now all they needed was to reach the transport ship and get out of this hellhole. The mission wasn't over yet, but the worst was behind them. Zira moved ahead, her steps light and controlled. Alex kept a steady pace behind her, his rifle ready, but the tension in his shoulders had eased. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. He glanced over at Zira. She hadn't spoken much since their conversation about the weapon, but he knew something had changed. Whatever secret she had been holding back, it was clear now that the mission was bigger than they had been told. "Are you all right?" Alex asked, his voice low but full of concern. Zira turned her head slightly, her golden eyes meeting his. Her face was unreadable, as always, but there was a hint of something softer in her gaze. "I'm fine," she said, her voice steady. Alex nodded, not pressing her further. He wasn't sure what to make of the way she had spoken earlier, about the real threat and the weapon that could destroy worlds. But there was no time to think about that now. They had done their part, and it was almost over. They reached the extraction point with no further interruptions. The transport ship was waiting for them, its engines humming softly in the background. The rest of the team was already aboard, their faces marked by exhaustion, but relieved that the mission was almost complete. "Captain," Reese greeted them as they boarded the ship. "Good job, both of you," he said, his voice filled with approval. "You made it through some heavy fire, but you got the job done." Zira nodded, but Alex could see the slight tension in her shoulders. She was relieved, yes, but there was something else, something more serious that she wasn't saying. He could feel it, and it made him uneasy. What was it that she knew that the rest of them didn't? "Let's get back to base," Alex said, trying to push the questions from his mind. The ship's engines roared to life. They began the journey home. As the ship lifted off the ground and shot into the sky, Alex sat back in his seat, his mind racing. They had completed the mission, gathering the intel, neutralizing the enemy threat, and surviving against overwhelming odds. But there was something bigger at play, something that Zira had hinted at, but not fully explained. He had always trusted his instincts, and they told him that this mission was far from over. He glanced over at Zira again. She was staring out the window, her eyes distant, lost in thought. She hadn't said much during the flight, and Alex knew better than to press her. But the feeling that something was wrong wouldn't leave him. She had been too calm, too controlled. It was as if she knew what was coming, as if she had known it all along. The ship traveled in silence for a while. Captain Harris was in the cockpit, coordinating their flight back to base. The rest of the team was scattered across the ship, either resting or reviewing the mission. But for Alex, it was impossible to relax. His mind kept circling back to Zira's words. The real threat is what they're building. Something far worse than you realize. Those words haunted him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they had only uncovered the tip of the iceberg. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the ship descended into the base. The lights of the base twinkled in the distance, and Alex felt a mix of relief and unease. They had made it back, but he wasn't sure they were safe. Not yet. The transport ship touched down smoothly, and the crew began to disembark. Stepped off the ship, he was greeted by the familiar sights of the base soldiers moving quickly, technicians checking equipment, and officers going about their duties. It felt like nothing had changed, but Alex knew better. The mission had been successful. Yes. But Zira's warning lingered in the back of his mind. "We're not done yet," Zira said suddenly, her voice low but firm. Alex turned to her, surprised by the seriousness in her tone. "What do you mean?" Zira looked at him, her golden eyes filled with an intensity that Alex hadn't seen before. "The weapon we were sent to stop. It's not just one device. It's part of something bigger. They've been working on something more dangerous. Something we've never seen before." Alex frowned. "So, the mission wasn't just about gathering intel." Zira shook her head. "No, this was just the beginning. The enemy has been building an army of these weapons, and they're not far from completing them. We have to stop them before it's too late." Alex felt his stomach tighten. He had known there was more to this mission than what they had been told, but hearing Zira speak like this made it real. It wasn't just a mission anymore. It was a race against time to prevent something catastrophic from happening. "What can we do?" Alex asked, his voice steady, despite the weight of the situation. Zira looked around, her expression determined. "We need to gather more intel. We need to find out exactly what they're building and where. But we also need to be careful. The enemy will be on high alert now that they know we've infiltrated their base." Alex nodded. He understood. This wasn't over. They had won the battle, but the war was far from finished. The real fight was just beginning. He and Zira would have to work together to stop it. For the first time since they had met, Alex felt a sense of camaraderie with Zira. She wasn't just his partner on this mission. She was his ally in a much bigger fight, and together they would face whatever came next. "We'll figure it out," Alex said, his voice filled with determination. "Together." Zira nodded, a slight smile appearing on her face for the first time. "Together."